What made you join at 30?
So at the time, I was actually working I was an accounts receivable. So I did accounting, but it was a culmination of a lot of events. But ultimately, what it really was is I just gotten out of a relationship
Mm-hmm.
and it was very devastating for me. And it sounds weird because the relationship only lasted like 5 or 6 months. But I usually, throughout most of my 20s, most of my relationships were like 3 years long.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for me, that last relationship, I think it ended, I was 29 at the time. And it wasn't the relationship itself, but it was me thinking, like, why do my relationships keep failing? It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
really the person or the relationship itself. I was like, why do all my relationships keep failing? Like, and it wasn't just the relationship itself, but it's where I was in my life. Like, I got my degree, but I was struggling to find jobs. And I grew up in this time where everyone told me that if you got a degree, you got a job.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the era that my parents grew up in. But what
Right.
happened is right when I went to college, there was this huge education inflation that I wouldn't have been able to predict at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone had a degree when I graduated. And the only way you can stand out was getting a master's.
Right.
So initially, when I went to college, I said, okay, I'm just going to go to college to do something that's going to make me money.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked computers. So I initially did computer science, but I hate math and I struggle so much with math. So I struggled a lot in college with that. So I changed my major to biology because I was like, well, if I can't work with computers or do whatever you can with I guess get do an IT job or something,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe I'll do something in the medical field. They make a lot of money. And I did biology, couldn't do the chemistry because it's a lot of math.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, I had sunk in over 3 years into college. I was absolutely tired of being in school.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was smart. There was just something about the way college courses were designed at that time. And right now, I'm so jealous of people that are in college. The amount of resources on the internet is absolutely unreal. And I envy people in college today. There's literally no reason anyone should struggle in any course in this day and age. You have Khan Academy. There's just so many free educational resources that didn't exist at that time for me. So I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really have any way of studying and whatever. So, anyways, I had 3.5 years and I had a ton of student debt. And I was like, well, I can't come this far and not leave without a degree. So I wanted to just get a degree in something. Let me just get that piece of paper and get out of college and start working. So I thought, okay, let me not get something that's going to get me a job. Let me, at this point, because I had accumulated so many electives from changing my major, I think about 2 or 3 times, I was like, let me do something that I enjoy. And I really enjoy writing. I was really good at it. So I got my degree in English literature with a concentration in creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
So I graduated and it was awesome because I was on the dean's list for like over a year. Like my grades went up because it was something that I actually enjoyed, and just goes to show you that getting something just to like make you money isn't everything. Do
True.
something that makes you happy and you're going to put everything into it. And I was really depressed for a lot of college because I felt stupid. Like I was struggling and failing these courses, but then when I did something that I loved, like I really excelled.
Mm-hmm.
So I graduated, but of course, I got an English major. And really, the only thing you can do with that is either be an author, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that I do want to do one day, is write a book, but also teaching. But that
Mm-hmm.
requires getting your master's, which I was so deep in student debt that I was like, I don't have the money to get a master's right now. What I do need to do is just get a job, just take my degree and just get any job.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, like again, everyone had a college degree, which sucked because at least in New York at the time after I graduated, the job market was just so insanely competitive. This was before they raised like the minimum wage to like $15 an hour. So here I am fresh out of college and I'm literally making the same money as like someone fresh out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked a lot of desk jobs. I did get a web development job for a bit because of to 2 years of computer science that I had under my belt. Did that for a while, but I got laid off because they needed someone a bit more experienced than I was. So I did more desk jobs. And eventually, because I did so many like receptionist and administrative jobs, I worked with, like, you know how there's like the accounting department, and if someone has leave or, well, not leave, or a day off, um,
Mm-hmm.
that they need you to fill in for them. And if they worked with money, they had to teach you how to, cash in checks and money orders, like, and all this kind of stuff about finances that I didn't know about. And I had to do that so many times over the years that I just accumulated all this knowledge about finances. So that's how I got my job before I enlisted into the Air Force, which was the accounts receivable clerk. And that was probably the
Mm-hmm.
most money I ever made. Um, but the fact that it took me till my late 20s to land my job. And so you're looking at literally me spending my entire 20s. The beginning of it, I was just suffering through college. And then the remaining half of it was going from job to job, trying desperately to just make a living.
Mm-hmm.
And because I wasn't making a lot of money, I really couldn't afford to live on my own. And I didn't have good benefits. I didn't have health insurance half the time. I had to be on Obamacare. And that health insurance just sucks. And
Mm-hmm.
so, so it was hard. I had no stability, and because I jumped from job to job, I was never able to take any vacations. I did no traveling in my 20s because you have to be in a job for a certain amount of time in order to get the 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really hard. Like, I felt like I tried so hard to follow the formula of go to college, get a good job, boom, money, career, and literally
Mm-hmm.
everything that everyone says you should be getting by following these steps. And I felt like I was failing, and I was failing in my relationships, and I was failing in my job, and it felt like I was a failure. I was probably easily the most depressing point of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think when I was like 27 or 28, I had gotten out of my last really long-term relationship, and we had lived together, and I had been away from home for a while because I was staying upstate. I was like dorming away at college. And then after I
Mm-hmm.
graduated, me and my boyfriend at the time, we moved in together. But after we broke up, I was like, well, I can't afford to live on my own. So I'm 28. I'm moving back in with my mom. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, this is what failure looks like. Like, that's just what I thought to myself. Like, I'm 28. I'm living with my mom. Another, again, failed relationship. But then I got that job, that new accounts receivable job, and things started looking up. I started dating again, and I got into that relationship that lasted 6 months, and I thought I saw a glimmer of things getting better. I was making more money, I had good benefits, but then that relationship ended, and I was like I think I was just done. Like, I think that's
Mm-hmm.
just when it all clicked. Like, I love my mom to death, but like I was too old to be living with her. Like, and at the time, even though I was making good money, like New York, you have to be making at least probably like $60,000 to afford your own apartment. My
Facts.
best
Facts.
my best friend had to work two jobs just to afford this tiny little basement apartment. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw the struggle that he went through just trying to work two jobs. He never had time to hang out. He was always short on money. Like, I didn't want that for myself. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, like, you know what? Now that I'm out of this relationship, how can I start over? I have nothing tying me down. It's just me. Like, how do I make the next best move in my life? So the relationship ended December of 2018. So a couple months later in May, um, have you ever been to the Jones Beach Air Show in New York by any chance?
I haven't. No.
So they have this. Do you know about it? Do you know what it is?
No. Do
So
tell.
every year on Memorial Day in New York, in Jones Beach, you have the Thundercats and the Blue Angels, and they're flying
Mm-hmm.
basically all over the beach on Memorial Day, and it's like a big event.
Okay.
So my friends and I went, and I was still really depressed at this point. I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was very unhappy. I was still like mourning the relationship, and I'm laying on the beach. This sounds so cheesy, but I promise you this is true. But I'm laying on the beach, and I'm like looking up at these pilots, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, they're doing all these cool moves. And I'm like, they must absolutely love their job. They must wake up and be like, I live such an amazing life because I have this amazing job. And what they're doing must make them feel so fulfilled. Like,
Mm-hmm.
or at least I think so. I mean, we never know what really goes on in people's lives. But the
Right.
idea that they really liked their job and how cool that was to do. And I was like, that's what I want. I just want to be fulfilled and I felt like I wanted to start over, but I just didn't know where. And because obviously it's the air show, you have all the branches there with all of their tents, just,
Mm-hmm.
trying to recruit people. And I thought to
Right.
myself, like, man, that would be great if I could go back in again. But then I was like, but aren't I too old? So I just quickly did a Google search on my phone, and I saw that they raised the age limit to 39 because after I had graduated college, I actually looked into joining the Air Force. I was like 25 at the time. Um, but that's a long story. I had a crappy recruiter, and it fell through, and I just ended up like just not enlisting.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, the age limit was, I think, 27. It was not 39. So that really blew my mind. So it really made me think, like, wow, this might be an actual thing that I could look into. Like, maybe this is my chance to start over. Literally the next week, I went and saw a recruiter. The week after that, I took the ASVAB. And then a month later, I went to MEPS and then signed my contract about a week later, and then
Wow.
shipped out 6 months later. So it happened really fast, really, really
Dang.
fast.